My name is Claire, and I am telling this myself because no one else can hold the thread the way I do. I grew up in a white house with a narrow porch on Laurel Street in Columbus, America. My father, John, said the porch was small but our futures were wide, and he would say it while sanding the rail until it felt like satin. When he died in late spring, the house sounded different, like it was listening for his steps and coming up empty. My mother, Linda, and I tried to keep the room steady, watering the fern in the dining room, opening the kitchen window so the air could move, but sadness made everything heavy. My brother, Mark, paced the hallway like a new boss at a factory, and in his mouth the word, responsibility, began to sound like a threat. It happened on a morning the sky looked clean and blue, the kind of blue that used to mean picnic days by the river. I was washing 2 plates, careful with the old chips on the edges, when Mark came in with a file box and a face I didn't know. He set the box on the table like a verdict. He said the company needed a leader and that he had already spoken to people who mattered. He said the house was his to control now, that decisions had been made, that delays were expensive. The words came out flat and practiced, as if he'd rehearsed them in front of the bathroom mirror. My mother stood there with a spoon in her hand and tea going cold, and I felt the floor tilt a little under my feet. When I asked what he meant by control, he didn't look at me. He pointed at the door instead and told us to leave. He didn't shout. He did not call us names. He just pressed his thumb on the scale of our lives and watched it drop. We packed in quiet. I took my father's cracked watch, a sweater, and the worn leather folder where he kept notes about orders and payroll for our small manufacturing company. My mother folded 2 blouses and her nightgown, then paused at the mantel where our family photo sat, the one from a summer in Cleveland when the wind took my hair straight up and made Dad laugh. She didn't pick it up. She only touched the edge of the frame and swallowed. Mark stood in the hallway with his arms crossed, tapping his foot like we were late to a meeting in downtown Columbus. I wanted to say 100 things, some kind, many not, but the space between us felt like a locked drawer. We opened the front door and stepped out with 1 duffel bag each. Behind us, the door closed with a click that sounded final, and I knew at once that the sound would live in me a long time. We walked because there was nothing else to do. The air smelled of cut grass and car exhaust, the regular perfume of America on a weekday. We had $22 between us, 2 10s and 2 1s, folded in my pocket, and the shape of that money felt like both a plan and a warning. We tried to think of friends to call, but grief had thinned our list and pride thinned it more. By noon the sun was hot, and the city kept moving around us with its usual purpose, as if our emergency were invisible. We bought 1 sandwich, split it in half, and ate it sitting on a low wall outside a pharmacy. My mother's hands shook a little when she passed me my part, and I pretended not to notice. In my head, I kept returning to the house, the cool of the hallway, the quiet of my room, the soft creak of the stair. A home can hold you even when you're not in it. That is its power and its cruelty. I told my mother we would be all right. My voice sounded steady enough that I almost believed it. Night would come, and then morning, and I would keep walking until I found the next open door. By the second night, hunger had a voice. It was not loud. It was a thin, steady sound that followed us as we walked the blocks of Columbus, America. My mother and I took turns holding the duffel, as if trading the weight could calm the ache in our stomachs. We counted our dollars again, $12 left after the sandwich and a bottle of water. We tried the church office on 3rd Street, but the door was shut early. We sat on the steps until a security guard asked us to move along. I kept thinking of our house, the white paint catching moonlight, the stairs that knew our steps. I told myself the house still knew us, even if our key did not work. On the 3rd day, our legs felt like wood. We drifted toward Broad Street, where the buildings turn taller and the windows shine. That is where the Franklin Hotel stands, a tower of glass and brass with a carpet so soft it looks like a lake. We stopped near the side door to rest in a slice of shade. The air was full of music and laughter. I thought it was a wedding at first, but then I saw the sign inside the lobby. Laurel and Steel Manufacturing Annual Gala. Our company. Our father's company. I felt heat rise in my face. It was strange to be outside, dusty and tired, while our old life clinked its glasses just beyond the glass. I tore a flap from a delivery box I found near the dumpster and wrote one word in a thick black marker: hungry. I held it because I could not think of a better plan. My mother stood close, quiet, with her arms wrapped over her middle like she was keeping something inside from breaking. People in suits passed us with careful eyes that did not land. A woman I knew from the office, Anna, floated by in a green dress. She met my eyes for a second, then looked at the elevator. I told myself not to hate her. Fear can make a person small. A man tossed a handful of coins into my palm, as if he were tossing feed to birds. I thanked him anyway. The coins felt heavy with the sound they would make and useless for what we needed. It was a voice from my childhood that cut through the noise. "Claire," he said. "Linda?" I looked up and saw Daniel Harris, my father's lawyer, in his navy suit. He had gray at his temples now, but his face was the same one that had smiled across our kitchen table while Dad brewed tea. He took in the sign, the duffel, the tired way we stood. His mouth went flat, not in anger at us, but in a kind of steady focus that I had seen on him when a contract was wrong. "Tell me what happened," he said, and we did in clean lines. Dad's death, Mark's words, the door, the long street. Mr. Harris listened without cutting in. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and typed with quick, exact thumbs. He opened a folder and turned the screen to us. On it were the documents my father had signed. The family trust for the house on Laurel Street with my mother and me named as co-owners. The clause that said any sale or major decision about Laurel and Steele needed 2 signatures, my mother's and mine, until I reached a set age. The board notes that showed no such change had been approved. Dates. Signatures. Scans so clear they felt like paper. My breath came out shaky. The world tilted again, but this time it tilted back, towards steady. "Where is Mark?" he asked. I lifted my chin toward the revolving door. We went inside together. The hotel air was cool and smelled like citrus. In the ballroom, lights hung like stars, and the logo of Laurel and Steele glowed on a screen. Mark stood near the bar, laughing, a hand raised as if he were blessing the room. When he saw us, his smile fell. Mr. Harris did not raise his voice. He showed the phone. He scrolled. He said words I will always remember. "This is invalid. This is reversible. And this," he tapped a page, "is binding." I watched Mark freeze, his eyes stuck to the small, bright proof in Mr. Harris's hand. The music kept playing, but it sounded far away, as if the ballroom were underwater. My mother's fingers found mine, and I held on. In that moment, the door that had closed behind us 2 days before began, very softly, to open again. The ballroom light was soft, but the truth in Mr. Harris's hand was bright. He held the phone like a lantern. On the screen were the trust papers, the board rules, and my father's last notes. Every line had weight. He spoke in a calm, firm voice that bent nothing. The house on Laurel Street belonged to my mother and me. The company could not act without our signatures. Any transfer Mark had tried to push through was void. He did not shame my brother. He did not fight. He just named what was real and let it stand. I felt my shoulders lower, the way a bridge lowers when the load finally matches the design. Mark's eyes kept flicking to the phone, as if the words might change shape if he stared long enough. He tried to talk around them, said there had been a meeting, said the board was aligned, said we were being emotional and unfair. Mr. Harris scrolled to a page stamped with a judge's name and a time. "This is an emergency motion," he said. "I am filing it now. It freezes any action on the company until the court hears us." He tapped again. "And this email, going out as we speak, alerts the bank. No funds move without our consent." I watched the send icon flash and felt a small, quiet click inside me, like a lock opening. Security never came. No scene broke out. People kept laughing under the chandeliers, but a few faces turned toward us, curious and cautious. A woman from accounting, Ruth, gave me a brief nod that felt like a hand on my back. Anna stood at the edge of a circle of marketers and looked down, shame in the set of her mouth. None of it mattered as much as the sound of my mother breathing steady beside me and the sight of my brother's shoulders slumping when he understood the thing was over. He did not shout. He did not beg. He just stood there in a suit that fit and a story that did not. Mr. Harris sent 2 more emails, then stepped a half-pace closer to Mark. "You will leave the house tonight," he said, still quiet. "You will not enter again without written consent. You will not use the company card for personal expenses. I will be in touch with the board in the morning." He turned to us and softened. "You are going home." The words broke something open in my chest. I nodded because I could not manage anything else. We left the ballroom and walked down the hallway where the carpet felt like moss. At the lobby door, Mr. Harris pressed 2 crisp $100 bills into my hand. "Dinner now," he said. "A hot meal and then sleep." I tried to hand the money back. He closed my fingers with a gentle squeeze. "You can repay me next week or never," he said, "but tonight you eat." My mother's eyes filled. I could smell her shampoo, plain and clean, and I thought of all the nights she had waited up for Dad with a kettle on low. We crossed the street to a small diner with red stools and a bell that rang when the door opened. The waitress looked at our faces, took in the duffel, and poured coffee without a word. We ordered roast chicken and mashed potatoes, extra gravy, and pie we did not need but wanted. The food was warm and solid. I ate until my hands stopped shaking. My mother nodded at the window, toward the hotel's glass, and said in a low voice, "Your father would have smiled at the way Daniel handled that." I smiled back. It felt like the first true smile in days. After dinner, we took a taxi to Laurel Street. The driver said nothing, which was its own kind of kindness. Our house looked the same as always. White paint, black door, a porch light left on by no one we knew. Mr. Harris met us there, keys in hand, papers ready for anyone who wanted to doubt. The lock turned with a sound I will never forget, a small metal sigh. Inside, the air smelled like lemon oil and dust. I went room to room and touched the backs of chairs, the smooth banister, the frame of the family photo. In my room, the curtain swayed as if someone had just left. I sat on the bed and held my father's cracked watch, feeling the beat of my own pulse under it. The house had waited. We had returned. Before he left, Mr. Harris stood in the doorway and gave us a plan. "Tomorrow, we file the motion in full. We speak to the bank, the board, and the judge's clerk. No one will move money. No one will sign anything. I'll be here at 9. He looked at me then, as if checking a switch. "Claire, I'll need you to authorize certain notices. Nothing hard. We do this by the book." I said yes. My voice was steady. He smiled, brief and proud, and stepped into the night. I washed 2 plates and set them to dry, just to hear the soft tap of ceramic on rack. My mother opened a window and let in the thin song of crickets. We made up the beds with fresh sheets. When we turned off the lights, the porch bulb threw a square of gold across the hallway floor, the same square I used to sit in while doing homework. I lay down and listened to the house settle around us, to the clock in the hall, to the quiet of a home that had been taken and then given back. Sleep came fast. In the dark, I told my father in a whisper that we were all right, and I believed it. Tomorrow would be hard. But tonight, in America, in our own house, we were home. Morning came with the smell of coffee and lemon oil, and with it a line-by-line plan from Mr. Harris. He arrived at 9, just as he'd promised, and spread folders across the dining table like maps of a country I suddenly knew how to travel. There were notices to the bank, a schedule for a board meeting, and draft language for a sale that would protect the workers and honor my father's wishes. It was not dramatic. It was steady. I signed where I needed to sign. My mother signed where she needed to sign, and each signature felt like a plank going down on a bridge we could finally cross. By noon, the court had affirmed the freeze. By evening, the board understood that the era of shortcuts was over. The house on Laurel Street was recorded, again with our names. I pressed my palm to the title page, as if to warm it. The weeks that followed were busy in the clean way that makes sleep simple. We sat in meetings where numbers were not weapons but tools. We spoke to 3 firms and chose the buyer, who promised to keep the line in Columbus open and the apprentices on payroll. I learned to ask direct questions and wait through the silence that follows a true question. In the end, we sold Laurel and Steel Manufacturing for $8,300,000. When the wire cleared, I half expected angels or fireworks. Instead, there was a small notification on a bank screen and a quiet nod from Mr. Harris. We paid taxes and legal fees, and then my mother and I looked at the remainder, $6,500,000, and felt both grateful and careful. We set aside $1,500,000 in a long, safe fund, the kind that grows like a patient tree. We kept $200,000 liquid, so the house would never feel fragile again. We sent bonuses to every employee because my father had always said a company's first currency is trust. Even Anna got hers. She wrote to say she was sorry for how she froze near the hotel elevators. I believed her. Fear is common. Courage is a practice. The house needed attention in a soft, respectful way. We repaired the roof and kept the original porch posts because my father's hand had sanded them smooth. I found a blue chair in a small shop downtown that looked like the sea from an art book about Europe my father used to flip through on Sundays. I bought it for the front room and tucked a plaid throw over the back. We replaced the old fridge and laughed when we discovered a magnet from a trip to Boston stuck to the side, hidden by years of grocery lists. I bought a second-hand car for $9,800 that starts with one honest turn of the key. My mother chose new curtains in a shade of green that made the kitchen feel like spring. We gave $50,000 to the community kitchen on Broad Street because we remembered the taste of that long third day, and we wanted strangers we would never meet to find warmth and bread. Mark came by one afternoon with a plain envelope. He stood on the porch as if asking permission from the house itself. He had started counseling. He said the words without flourish. He handed my mother a check for $25,000 to reimburse the celebration he'd charged to the company card.
It was not the figure that mattered.
It was the shape of his apology. No excuses, just the truth and a promise to learn how to be a brother again. My mother hugged him. I shook his hand, then hugged him too. We did not solve the past on the porch, but we agreed to build a different future in small, steady pieces. At night, when the porch light burns a neat halo on the steps, I sit with my mother and count the ways we are rich beyond the numbers on a page. We have a house with our names on it. We have a plan that fits our lives. We have work to do in the morning and a table to set in the evening. Sometimes we talk about a short trip, New York for a weekend, or the coast of Maine where the air smells like salt and pine. America is large, but home is a few rooms with the right people in them. Before bed, I pass my father's cracked watch from hand to hand and feel its quiet weight. A company is gone, and that is fine. What remains is the promise he made without saying it outright. Build what you can, repair what you break, and leave the porch light on for those still walking. I am Claire, and this is how the story turns by the book, by the heart, and by our own hands.